Hello friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and we are quickly approaching the Thanksgiving season here for those of us that live in the United States. And every year I think about putting out a Thanksgiving recipe kind of video, and then by the time I get around to putting it out, it's either the week of Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving, and I'm like, well, those recipes wouldn't be very helpful now for anyone. So this year I decided to think ahead and do some make ahead Thanksgiving recipes and kind of share those with you guys in the hopes that maybe this can help some of you who are starting to plan out your Thanksgiving meals, show you some of the work that you can do ahead of time to make the day of a little less stressful. So we're going to be making things like cranberry salad, pie crusts. We're going to make several desserts, pumpkin flavored desserts. I'm going to do a grain-free stuffing recipe and lots more. And all of these are items that can be made ahead and either canned or frozen, and they reheat well on the day of Thanksgiving, because as we all know, the kitchen gets very busy in the days leading right up to Thanksgiving or the day of, and sometimes it feels impossible to get everything done on that day. So the more that you can do ahead of time, the less stressful that day can be. So that is what I want to bring to you. And if you're interested in hearing some of those recipes, why don't you stick around? The first thing that I didn't include in this video, but something that really does make Thanksgiving easier, is if you make your pie fillings ahead of time. And I have done multiple videos over the years of various types of pie fillings that we can, and I'm going to link a few of those in the video description for you. If you were thinking about, maybe you have some bulk apples or something this week and you thought, hey, I'll can a batch of apple pie filling. It'll be one less thing I'll need to do on the day of Thanksgiving. You can check out the recipes in those videos that I'll link below, and those will give you some canned pie filling recipes. But the rest of the stuff we're going to go ahead and show in this video, so let's get started.
So as always, any of the recipes that I'm discussing in this video will be in the video description. So make sure you check that out if you want to try any of these for your Thanksgiving meal. Let's go ahead and get started with cranberry sauce or cranberry salad. Everybody kind of has a different idea of what that is, but I like to use frozen cranberries, and this is definitely something that I measure with my heart. So I'm going to try my best to tell you how much I'm putting in here, but the first thing that I add to my frozen cranberries is some kind of citrus juice. I did not have orange juice in the house on this day. That's typically what I would put in my cranberry sauce, but I did have some grapefruit. So we added 2 grapefruits, the juice from 2 grapefruit fruits, and then I had a couple mandarin oranges in the house that just kind of needed to be used up. So we went ahead and added the fruit from those mandarin oranges. And then I added 1 pint of some apple juice. Now we're going to add a little bit of honey to sweeten it, just maybe 2 tablespoons. This is some of our homegrown honey. And then sprinkling in cinnamon. Like I said, just kind of measuring with my heart. You can't mess this up. And then just a tiny bit of cayenne pepper. You're going to want to trust me on that. It adds a little bit of a kick. And then we're going to add some salt. We're going to get this on the stove, mix it all up, and let it simmer down for a little bit. Now, once that has simmered down and the cranberries have cooked and softened, I prefer to blend my cranberries into it to make it almost like an applesauce, like a pure cranberry sauce. Some people like the chunks of cranberries, so I would just go ahead and not puree it and leave it chunky. If you like it that way, you can do whatever you want. And then we're going to fill our jars here, and we are going to can this. And I know this recipe is safe to can because all of that fruit makes this acidic enough, especially using the citrus juice. We had a little bit left over. We're going to go ahead and put it in the fridge. I'm going to wipe my rims on the jars, and we're going to add our 4 jars canning lids. You can get 10% off some canning lids if you check out the link in the video description. These are the absolute best canning lids. It's pretty much all I use anymore. Once we get our lids and our rings on, this is going to process in the water bath canner for 10 minutes. And I only do a little batch of cranberry sauce every year because it isn't something we eat a lot of, but we do like to have it during the holidays. So it's nice to go ahead and just can up a little batch of it. it's all done for us, and on Thanksgiving Day, it's just one less thing that we have to think about. So I highly encourage, if you like cranberry sauce, go ahead and can it up, and then you don't have to worry about it on Thanksgiving. Another thing I like to do ahead of time in preparation for my Thanksgiving meal is to go ahead and get any pumpkin puree ready to go. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but butternut squash or winter squashes that taste like butternut squash are great as a substitute for pumpkin in any of your pumpkin flavored desserts. And we did not grow pumpkin this year. We grew Canada crookneck squash, which is kind of similar to a butternut squash. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut one of those up and roast it in the oven. And this is what we're going to puree down and use as our pumpkin puree in things like pumpkin pie and some of the cookies and muffins that we're going to make later in this video. So this is a great thing that you can do ahead of time. Do this in the weeks leading up, and you can just put it in the freezer and it's ready to go. And then on the day of Thanksgiving, if you want to do some baking, you can just thaw that puree and pull it out of the oven and get ready to bake with it. But I'm going to go ahead and bake ahead a few things today using some of the puree, and we're going to freeze the actual baked goods instead of the puree. You could do it either way. But once it's roasted, it took maybe 45 minutes to an hour in the oven on 350, and then we're just going to blend that up, get it all nice and pureed, and then we can store it up and use it however we would like to for our Thanksgiving dishes. So the first pumpkin dessert that I'm going to make ahead are some pumpkin ginger snap cookies. Cookie dough freezes beautifully. So we are going to start with 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I added 1 cup of sugar, and then we're adding 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Next, we're going to add our cinnamon. We need 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. We're also going to add 1.5 teaspoons of ground ginger. Now we're going to mix that together and get ready to add our wet ingredients for our cookie dough. You need 1/2 cup of some kind of fat, whatever it is that you'd like to use. We can't have dairy in our house, or we would probably use melted butter. But since we can't use butter, I am doing 1/2 cup of avocado oil. Really, any kind of oil would work great for this. The next thing we're doing is also adding 1/2 cup of that pureed squash or pumpkin. And now we're going to add 1/4 cup of molasses. That's what's going to give these ginger snaps that really good molassesy flavor. Absolutely love it. And then we're adding 1 egg and a little bit of vanilla extract. I'm at the very end of my homemade vanilla extract. I need to get a new bottle of vodka and switch these vanilla beans over. I started mixing this together, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I missed a couple of ingredients. So I also needed to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt and also 1 teaspoon of cloves. I was really glad that I caught that before I mixed it all together. I knew I was missing something. I'm blaming it on pregnancy brain right now. And once I got that thoroughly mixed, I got out my Super Cube silicone cookie trays here. We're just going to portion that out. And like I said, cookie dough freezes beautifully. You could do this 2 ways. On the day of Thanksgiving, you can just take the frozen balls of dough and put them directly into the oven, or you could thaw them the day before, and then you could roll the dough balls out in some sugar and bake it that way. Either way, it works beautifully, but this just saves you time. You don't have to make your cookie dough on the day of. Go ahead and make it ahead of time and freeze it, and it's just one more thing that you can cross off your to-do list and make your day go well. So my son, David, is our baker. He makes an amazing ginger snap. Everybody on both sides of our families absolutely loves it. So he usually makes regular ginger snaps for family gatherings, but we went ahead and made some pumpkin ginger snaps just as something different this year. Next thing that freezes really well that makes Thanksgiving go easier is pie crust. So this is just my basic pie crust. This makes 2 crusts. I start with 2 cups of flour, and then I add 3/4 a cup of fat. You want a fat that is solid at room temperature, so butter, lard, some kind of shortening. And then you add 1/4 a cup of cold liquid, either milk or water, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And then I just put it in my food processor and literally let the food processor cut that fat into the flour for me. It's so easy. This recipe right here is divided out into 2 crusts. It'll make a top and a bottom. So you could make many more versions of or batches of this, depending on how many pies that you want to make. But to freeze this, just roll it up in some plastic wrap, and then you can pull that out and thaw it the day before. Works perfectly, saves you so much time on the day of Thanksgiving. So we went ahead and froze one of those crusts, and I'm going to go ahead and roll one out, and we're going to make a pumpkin pie just so I can share with you my dairy-free pumpkin pie recipe. So we're starting out with 2 eggs, and then I added a 1/2 cup of white sugar and a little bit of molasses. If you have brown sugar, you could just do a 1/2 cup of brown sugar instead of, the molasses. Then I added 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm adding 2 cups of our pumpkin or squash puree. And then we need 1 cup of milk of whatever your choice is. Since we're dairy-free, I'm using almond milk. Sometimes I'll use coconut milk or coconut cream if I have that in the house. If you can have dairy, go ahead and use regular milk or cream. Any of that would work in this recipe. Then we're just going to take our immersion blender and mix it all together. Super easy. Go ahead and pour that into our pie crust that was all rolled out and pressed into our pie pan. And then we're going to bake this on 350 degrees for about 40 minutes or so, until it starts to crack and the center is done. And it smells amazing. I have a couple kids who pumpkin pie is their absolute favorite dessert. Sometimes if I'm feeling fancy, we'll make a dairy-free whipped cream to decorate it, make it look a little prettier. But we just had this for dinner on that night, and it was a hit. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you want some ideas to make other pies a little easier to make ahead pies, check out some of my recipes for canned pie filling, and you can go ahead and spend the next week canning some filling so that you don't have to do that on Thanksgiving Day. Let's go ahead and make some muffins now. We're going to start with 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and then we're going to add 2 cups of sugar. Now we're going to add 4 teaspoons of baking powder. We're doing 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And those are all of our dry ingredients. As I was mixing that together, I realized I need a much larger bowl than this to add my wet ingredients. So we're going to head and pour that into something larger so that we can get our wet ingredients added to this. We needed 2 cups of pumpkin puree. These are going to be pumpkin muffins. They make a wonderful Thanksgiving breakfast edition, or just a nice snack to have on Thanksgiving Day as you're waiting for meals. We need 1 cup of oil, and we are using avocado oil. You could use any fat. And then we need to add 4 eggs. And that is it. It's a super easy. This is actually one of our favorite breakfasts. That's typically what we make it for. But muffins freeze beautifully, so this is something you can go ahead and make ahead of time. I had to add a little extra liquid just because my pumpkin puree was rather dry. So if you find that as you're mixing that up, it just kind of depends on what type of pumpkin puree you're using. Just add a little water or milk or something like that until you get it to a muffin texture. Now we're going to get these muffins into our muffin cups. I had a little one fall into my cupcake pan, so I had to get her off the counter and get that all fixed. Half of my family really likes chocolate chips in their pumpkin muffins, so I did half plain, and then when I had half of the batter left, I went ahead and added some chocolate chips. These are going to bake on 350 degrees, and they take maybe 25 minutes or so. And like I said, you can freeze these up. Just pull them out the day before to let them thaw, and these make a great addition to your Thanksgiving spread. Just great to have for breakfast, or just to have sitting out as a snack while everybody is waiting for your beautiful Thanksgiving feast. Now we're going to make my version of stuffing. I can't have bread because of the diet I'm on, but I love stuffing, and so this is what I make in place of a traditional stuffing. We're starting out with a little bit of avocado oil in our pan, and I diced up 1 of our homegrown onions. Next thing we're going to do is add some chopped celery and add that to the pan. And then we're going to do the same thing with carrots. So this is a recipe, like I said, that doesn't use bread or breadcrumbs or anything like that. It's going to be primarily vegetable and meat based, and it's really delicious and just kind of fills my need for stuffing during a Thanksgiving meal. I took some smaller cloves of garlic, probably 4 or 5 large cloves, the equivalent of that. And then we browned up 1 pound of sausage to add to this. You could do as much meat as you want. This is another one that I just kind of measure with my heart. So this was 1 pound of sausage. And then if I have fresh mushrooms in the house, I'll chop those up and put them in there. But I didn't have fresh. We did have some canned mushroom pieces, and we went ahead and added that to the pot. Now we are going to add 1/2 cup of broth. I'm using ham broth, but any kind of chicken, turkey, whatever kind of broth you have works. And then I'm also adding about 1/2 cup of frozen cranberries. That cranberry flavor just really adds something special to this. You don't want to skip that. Nuts go really well in this stuffing. If I have walnuts or almonds in the house, that would be my preferred nut, but I didn't have any on this day, so I'm adding cashew pieces. It's also great. It just adds a little crunch to it and also just some really good flavor. And then we're putting some freeze-dried sage from last year's garden. I'm just going to use up the rest of that jar in there, and then we're adding a little ground thyme. And then, of course, we're going to salt and pepper it. So this is something that you could just kind of cook it on the stove for a little bit. And once you get all of those ingredients mixed together, you can freeze it. And then on the day that you want to serve this stuffing, pull it out of the freezer, let it thaw, put it in a nice baking dish in the oven, and just bake it on 350 degrees for maybe 20-25 minutes. It'll warm it all up and let all those flavors cook down together. And this is just a great addition to serve with your Thanksgiving spread. If you have someone in your home that has celiac disease or can't eat gluten, they'll really appreciate having a stuffing option like this. So I hope you enjoyed those recipes and a look at what we eat on Thanksgiving.
Hey guys, so hopefully you enjoyed some of these make-ahead Thanksgiving recipes that I shared. For us, every year for Thanksgiving, Adam and I are very blessed to live in the same hometown as both of our sets of parents. My parents live maybe 30 minutes away. Adam's live about 20 minutes away. And so we typically spend Thanksgiving Day with my family and then the Friday following Thanksgiving with Adam's family. And so I haven't had to host a full Thanksgiving meal in several years. I did it the year of COVID for our family, and I did it a few times when we lived at our old house and had a little more space for entertaining large amounts of people. So I typically bring a lot of side dishes and desserts, and a lot of the things that I'll be bringing this year are things that I mentioned in this video. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, I just want to tell all of you how thankful I am that you're here and that you support my family by watching our videos and engaging with our content. This channel has grown to be a huge blessing to our family, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So I am just grateful for each and every one of you. I also wanted to address something in the spirit of gratefulness. When you do put yourself out there on YouTube, you get your share of encouragement from viewers, and you also get a fair share of criticism. Some of the criticism you just kind of have to let go in one ear and out the other, because you know it's not coming from a good place. It's coming from kind of a toxic place, a place of anonymity where people feel that they can say whatever they want on the internet. But there also is a share of the criticism that we receive on our channel that I know comes from a really good place, a helpful place where people want to encourage us to maybe look into what we're doing and find a better way and things like that. And there was one comment in my last video that kind of felt along those lines. It was a food haul video, and one of the comments was just saying that maybe as a Christian, it's kind of showing off or lacking humility to display all of this food when there are people out there that are struggling to pay their grocery bills. And so I just wanted to address that in this video so you know where my heart is in everything that I share here, because it is one of those criticisms that really did make me take a look at what I'm sharing, take a look at my intentions in my heart, and assess whether or not it's coming from a good place. And whether it is a food haul or a pantry tour or a freezer tour or showing a big garden harvest, anything like that, my intent on this channel is never to show off how much food we have or come from that type of place. If I'm sharing my pantry, it isn't to say, hey, look at all this food I was able to store up. It's more coming from a place of encouragement. I'm hoping that this can show people who are watching how to make homesteading attainable. If I'm showing a garden haul, I want to do it to encourage others and show them what's possible with some hard work and doing the research and all of the things that are necessary for growing a garden or canning food or things like that. Because I was once at a place where this lifestyle wasn't attainable, either due to financial reasons or the location in which we were living or whatever season of life we were in. And we worked very hard to get to this place. And I found a lot of encouragement in people that were willing to share what they were doing and how they did it, because it helped me grow in my skills and it helped me set goals for myself that I wanted to reach when I was able. So in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I just wanted to share that my heart and everything that I'm sharing with you on this channel is coming from a place of gratefulness and hopefully a place of aspiring to encourage you to know that this is possible. It does take hard work, and it does take sometimes when you're growing food, it does take having land and the resources to make that happen. But you can do it, and I just want to be an encouragement to people. So anyways, I guess I just hope that anything I'm sharing, whether it's a food haul or a pantry tour or anything like that, is coming across the way in which I intend it. And we are grateful that the Lord has blessed us. We recognize that we are in a season of being very privileged to be able to do the things we do and to have the food storage that we've worked really hard to accumulate. And we hope that isn't a discouragement to those of you that aren't in that season of life. We hope to be an encouragement to you. So anyways, I'm rambling, but all that to say, I'm thankful for you. I'm even thankful for you when your criticisms cause me to reflect, and they come from a good place. And I hope that you will still continue to share your thoughts on all of my content, whether good or bad, as long as they're coming from a loving place and a place of good intention. So, all right, at this point that the video is coming out, we're less than 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. I hope that you guys are drawing up your menu plans and getting excited to spend time with your friends and family in a season of thankfulness. We have so much to be thankful for. And that's it for this week. I'll be back next week with more of our goings on here at Three Rivers Homestead. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Bye, friends.